Estranged Act I is a free-to-play shooter developed by Alan Edwards and the Estranged team. It was released on January 16, 2014. It runs on the Source engine, and you can classify it as a standalone game that you can play without having Half-Life 2 or the episodes. The story is about a fisherman who crashes his ship on a mysterious island where some sort of outbreak has happened. There's zombies everywhere, and maybe a secret organization is involved in being the cause of it. I'll start off by saying I enjoyed the experience Estranged has to offer. There are drawbacks, but I'll get to those too. The game reminded me of the classic Half-Life 1 mods like They Hunger, as in how it keeps the story mysterious and its atmosphere somewhat moody. As mentioned earlier, this game uses the Source engine, specifically the 2013 one, so that gives it some benefits like improved lighting and physics, and it certainly shows. The use of dynamic lighting in any Source game or mod is something that I highly appreciate, especially if it's used well, like in this game. Seeing those shadows move dynamically might be a subtle graphical feature, but it's a good one to look at. And speaking of lighting, each area and level has its own style of lighting. The first half of the game is much more atmospheric than the latter half. The docks under the moonlight, the dark forest, tunnels, and sewers. The latter half of the game is much more brightly lit and ominous in its own way. Then there's the levels themselves. Vacant of any inhabitants, walking around empty structures, buildings, and areas further improves the mysteriousness of the story. The levels are well decorated with props, decals, and models and all that good stuff, and the game uses a lot of Half-Life 2 assets as well, so most of this is familiar looking, but where it uses custom assets, it doesn't look too out of place, so it all fits in perfectly. There aren't a lot of weapons in this game. There's a pistol, a hammer, and a submachine gun. The pistol is a Colt 1911, and the hammer is, well, a hammer. They both look fine. The SMG, however, is just the Half-Life 2 SMG. I would have appreciated it if it was an MP5 or an Uzi or any submachine gun that you see in the mainstream media, but this works too, I guess. One thing I'd like to definitely praise is the music. The music in this game is absolutely amazing. It certainly suits the overall design of the levels, the atmosphere, and to some extent, the story. Very well composed and arranged. Then there's the gameplay, and if you know me, you already know by this point that this is where I'll be describing the flaws. Well, it's not that bad honestly. This game plays. Get it? Game plays? Sorry. Estranged has good gameplay in terms of how you traverse the levels. Never in my playthrough did I ever get stuck at a puzzle or in a fight. The puzzles were simple to solve. Even if it felt like I was going to get stuck, I only looked around and realized what the solution was, so kudos for having puzzles that don't require me to have 3000 IQ. The layouts of the levels I think are well designed as well, straightforward, linear. Some players might find it a little too linear. You can't get lost in it, is what I'm trying to say. You'll always know where to go, from start to finish. Now here's what I didn't like. The enemies in this game don't pose much of a threat. Like, really, there's just two main types of enemies, which is a drawback on its own. There are the zombies that actually run towards you instead of walking, and then there's these people that shoot at you. The zombies don't pose much of a threat. There was this one part where a bunch of them spawned in, but all it took were either 3 shots to the chest or 1 to the head to put them down. It definitely has an element of you having a good aim, but the problem isn't that they are easy to take down, it's just that there aren't many of them to deal with. A good chunk of the first half is just you going through these nice looking places and stumbling upon maybe 1 or 2 zombies to kill. Spamming zombies in the levels wouldn't have been a good gameplay design choice, so I think having another type of enemy would have solved this issue. Maybe head crabs or the fast zombies from HL2 would have done the trick. And when you finally come across the weapon-wielding enemies, they aren't that difficult to deal with either. I mean, you can pick them off easily if you have enough cover. Now if they had the AI that the Combine have in HL2, it would have been nice. Some of them would take cover and suppress you, while some would charge at you or flank you. Now the story is fairly simple. It doesn't provide much exposition as to what happened here, as it deliberately keeps things mysterious. Like, how did this outbreak start? What's Tempest? What is this ARC organization? There are also not that many characters in the game. There's a guy at the start.
I run into a bit of trouble, so excuse the mess.
A guy that captures us.
Are you awake yet? Hello? I'm talking to you. Yes, you.
And the scientist, who might be Dr. Kleiner's brother.
What the? Hey, you! Oh, thank God! I thought everybody left. Hey, can you get me out of here? There should be a key card somewhere, I think.
They are well voiced, and the dialogue is well written, I would say. It starts off from our crash, goes through a bunch of different locations before we get captured, run away, find a scientist, then escape again, only to fall in a hole at the end. I'll be honest, I was kind of intrigued by the story. I wanted to find out what happened on the island and see how the story would end up. The only drawback to the story, or rather the game itself, is that it's a little shorter than what I was expecting. You can finish this game in under an hour. Now there is a sequel to the game, but I'm not sure if I should check it out or not. From what I've seen, Act II, or Estranged Departure as it's called, has more of the same issues that Act I has. Some people have even said that it's not as good as Act I, but I don't know, maybe someday I'll take a look at it. So yeah, that was Estranged Act I. It's a good experience, a little short, but still, it's good. And I would recommend it if you're looking to try out a Source Engine based game. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.